talk about any abstract concept at all. I thought I'd just tell a story about something that's quite close to my heart. And it does actually relate to this theme of the plenary in relation to transnational actors and international fields, I think it was. What I want to do is talk about the institution with which I'm affiliated with, and that's the Central European University, as an example of a transnational actor that is in a very tight and hot predicament in the European Union and in relation to the Hungarian government. And I choose this example because I think it's symptomatic of a range of things that are going on, and it also relates to the idea of policy transfer. Now, it was David, I think, who actually used the phrase, the European Union is this sort of greenhouse or hothouse, a laboratory for policy transfer. But he used this phrase, I think, about 12 years ago, if not more. And I think today, given the difficulties that are being faced in the post-global financial crisis context of austerity politics and policy, we can maybe think about the European Union not as something coming together, becoming more integrated, but as something that is much more sharply in relief as a set of composite parts that are sometimes in conflict. Okay. So the CEU, some of you might know that April last year, the Hungarian government instituted some new legislation that would in effect force the university out of the country. And this has become a cause célèbre in the EU, but also internationally, because this would be the first case of a university being ejected from a country in what is supposedly the democratic regional association of the EU. So it is seen as being something different from the cases in Russia, where there have been institutions pushed out, and also the clampdown in Turkey as well. So it's an issue that is not just about academic freedom, but it also goes to the core of the identity of the European Union and the way it has been trying to project democratic values as European values. They're also, you could argue, universal values, not just European. So it's become quite an issue of not just for the university, but also for the European Commission, the European People's Party, and other actors that are operating at a regional level within the EU. Okay, so these are the antagonists, I guess would be the way to describe it. My friend Victor, he's the Prime Minister of Hungary, and he's a champion of what he calls illiberal democracy. So he's promoting a very different version of what constitutes democracy inside the European Union. And he's positing this framework against the European Union, but also against the other antagonist in this, George Soros, who is described as an alien, as a satanic force, as a leader who's looking to usurp the sovereignty of not just Hungary, but all of the states of the European Union by encouraging a flood of Muslim refugees into the Union. So these two are at polar opposites in terms of their interests. Viktor Orban has, since the election last month, softened his illiberal democracy narrative. He's now talking about Christian democracy and about Hungary being the bulwark against what is outside Europe. And it is also something, Christian democracy, I think, resonates better with other constituencies in the EU. So essentially, Viktor Orban and his allies are promoting a very different vision of what it means to be a European. I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad one or a good one. Obviously, I do have views, but it is a different vision, and it is one that is having some success within not just Hungary, but the European Union. And it is not just an attack on this one small little university. This is part of a pattern where there have been attacks in Hungary on NGOs, on Szabadság, which translates roughly as the Daily Freedom, a newspaper. It was the only source of opposition to the Hungarian government, and the Open Societies foundations and migrants who have been flooding into Hungary. So as I said, a liberal democracy. This is something that's been picked up by the Visegrad Four, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia and Hungary. And they are, as I'm suggesting, presenting different ways of being European. And these are countries that are also being accused of backsliding on their commitments within the European Union. And the book covers there are just a few examples of accounts that analyze these deviations, these pathways of deviations from the European project as it is seen from the Western component, or the old core component of the EU, as a move away from democratic values, amongst other things, towards this different version of democracy, but one that is also matched with high levels of corruption, the clampdown on civil liberties, and processes of state capture, which are not corruption, but legalized forms of cronyism, is one way to describe it, and looting the public sector. And I want to relate it finally back to this idea I have of motivity, that what is seen in this crystallization of the CEU example is a rejection of Western ideas or of liberal democratic ideas, because in effect, the Central European University, which is a private American university and accredited in the United States, is a transplant from the United States into Europe and into Hungary. And while it has been successful in the sense of attracting students, in becoming a very international university and a European university, it's become a thorn in the side of the Hungarian government, and it doesn't have the kind of political or popular support from the local electorate. It might have support from the Budapest community, but that is very different from other parts of society in Hungary. So it's an institution that is a little Western liberal bubble that hasn't taken root inside Hungary and is now, I think, going to be uprooted and moved to Vienna.